How's it going, everybody? Welcome to General Hospital Envy, my GA chapter show. Let's get into it. Spencer had confessed that he and Esme were Nicholas and Ava's stalker, but he insisted that everything was solely his idea to protect Esme. No one has ever accused Spencer of being extremely intelligent. Needless to say, Nicholas tossed Spencer and Esme out of the castle, leaving them to fend for themselves, and Esme also had to face the wrath of Spence's friends. I gotta hand it to Esme. She did try to lie her way out of it, but then Spencer showed up at Kelly's and admitted to everything, so tough luck. The only person to feel sorry for Spencer at this point is Trina. She told her mom about how Spencer was Victor, and Mama Portia was not impressed. In fact, when she ran into Nicholas, she told him that if Spencer knows what's good for him, he will stay away from her daughter. You know Trina's gonna be mad at that one. Trina really be liking those bad boys, yo. That's probably why she friend-zoned Cameron. Later, Trina went over to Ava's to apologize for not warning her about Spencer sooner, and Ava said that there was nothing to forgive. I actually really love the growth that Ava has had in her friendship with Trina. She's become such a great lady, and I'm shocked to say that because Ava can be garbage. We've known it. We've had several years of Ava being garbage, but the growth she's experienced the last few years, I have to, give props to Ava Jerome. She's turned into quite a motherly figure for Trina, even though she already has a perfectly good mom herself. Spencer and Esme were staying at the Metro Court until Nicholas found out, and then he canceled his credit card, so Spencer approached Britt at the Metro Court restaurant and tried to ask her to crash in her room at the Metro Court, but before Britt could really go for it, which she wasn't going to, but before she could, Carly stepped in and said hell no because of what he did to Avery. Now, while Spencer was trying to get Britt to do him a favor, Esme went over to Cameron and brought on the waterworks. She played this whole fake Spencer needs his friends, he's lost everyone, and you're his real friends, which is ironic because earlier in the day, Esme and Spencer were having a conversation and she trashed his friends. This chick is scary, dudes. I mean, she is psychopath 101, okay? She is trying to isolate Spencer from all of the people he cares about. She loves manipulating people. She can torch a car or send a mob kingpin after a person and not even blink an eye. I seriously want to know more about this girl because I'm confused as to why they're suffering and struggling to get by when she's supposedly rich herself, you know? Who are you really, Esme Prince? Who do you guys think she is? Let me know in the comments below. Okay, let's talk about Sunny and Carly. The last time we saw them, Carly was going to ask Sunny about Nina. She asked him why he didn't bring her up, and he kind of danced around the question, trying to figure out what she knew and what she didn't know. Basically, he said that he just wanted to focus on getting his life back and wanted to forget about everything that happened. But we know there's more, let's face it. One thing that is really obvious with Carly is that she's trying her best to forget about her almost relationship with Jason. I mean, she's having flashbacks of their happiest moments, and then she's trying to mask it by making love to Sunny, kissing him, cuddling him, telling him it's so great that he's back and all that good stuff. You can just tell this is gonna be a hot mess. Now, later on in the week, Phyllis shows up to the Casa de Corinthos to officially meet the Sunny Corinthos. And Sunny was actually really nice to her, just as nice as Mike was to her. Obviously, Sunny didn't forget all the hospitality that Phyllis and Lenny gave him, and Carly was actually really grateful to meet her as well. Although I will say that it was very obvious that Carly was realizing that Sunny had 9 months of a life that was built without her that she knows nothing about. And you could tell that made her really uncomfortable. One thing that really confused me about Phyllis's visit is that she brought a box of Mike's belongings, which was 3 plaid shirts and a cowboy hat, basically. But I wanted to know how those things survived the tonneau literally burning down to the ground. We know that Mike lived above the tonneau, and we know that it was burned in the ground. In fact, they even talked about it during the conversation, that it was burnt to a crisp. So where did this box come from? How did it survive? Another oopsie by the writers that we're just supposed to overlook again, I guess. But anyway, Carly decides to give Sunny and Phyllis some alone time and goes to the Metro Court. And Phyllis takes the opportunity to bring up Nina to Sunny. She basically says that she can't write off Nina just yet and asks Sunny if he can do the same. I have a bad feeling that they might actually go with Sunny and Nina and Jason and Carly, and I feel like once Sunny knows about Carly and Jason's relationship and how it is a little bit more real than they have been letting on, that he's going to run straight into Nina's arm. I feel like the rest of this year is going to be a hot mess in Port Charles. Speaking of Nina, she had to deal with a few more confrontations this week. Not only Britt, but also Michael and Willow, and Jocelyn. Britt was pretty nonchalant about it, to be honest. I mean, Nina tried to say that, the reason Jason and Britt broke up was because of Nina, but Britt was just like, you know what? I don't want to be anyone's second woman, and I will always be the second woman to Carly no matter what. And Nina's like, good for you. Now, when Michael and Willow found out about Nina and Sunny, they found out that Nina was at the Savoy with Curtis, so they go over there to confront her. And Curtis, obviously being a good friend of Nina's, jumps to her defense. Obviously, Michael and Willow plan to cut Nina out of Wiley's life yet again, but Curtis stands up for her and says, would this actually be in Wiley's favor? Or is this just to punish Nina? In all fairness, I do think that Curtis kind of has a good point. I mean, cutting Nina out of Wiley's life is only going to hurt Wiley. Yes, it'll hurt Nina as well, but is it worth hurting Wiley? And that's the point he was trying to make. Do you guys agree with Curtis? Let me know in the comments below. Now, my favorite, surprisingly, of all the confrontations with Nina was actually the one that she had with Jocelyn, because unlike Carly, Jocelyn got to be a little more than just angry. You could see the devastation and how hurt she was, and she said it in like a very calm but also like very soap opera-esque manner. Jocelyn pulls out the journal that Nina had given her and she starts ripping out the pages and talking about what she had wrote in them, including the times that she would run into Carly crying over Sunny's death, or all the times that she was sad about it, all the times that they were mourning him. And then she brings up her father Jax and how Jax got shot trying to protect Nina, and that Nina repaid him by lying to his face when he thought that he saw Sunny. I gotta say that Eden McCoy did a fantastic job with these scenes. I was actually really impressed. Alright, let's talk about Austin. Now, as you guys know, Brooklyn got into Austin's face and threatened him because she thought that he was using Leo to distract Ned from ELQ. Brooklyn and Chase go out for breakfast and talk about the situation, and Chase tries to play devil's advocate a bit and says, maybe Austin could be telling the truth though, and wouldn't you want to find out about it just in case? It couldn't hurt. It took a lot of convincing, but eventually she did see through to that. Now, meanwhile, Austin and Maxie were hanging out at the hospital. She had stopped by to give Bobby flowers for BJ's birthday, and she talks to Austin about how she had a heart transplant from BJ back when she was a child and that it saved her life. Austin was also surprised to learn that Maxie doesn't consider Brooklyn a friend, which is awkward to him because they're always together. Maxie talks about their history and how Brooklyn tried to break up Dante and Lulu and how Lulu was her best friend and that she never really forgave her for that. But obviously Dante and Lulu worked it out and stayed together despite that. So there's nothing for Maxie to still be mad about at this point. It's obvious to Austin that those two have gotten close together, and Austin kind of brings up the fact that they are close, and Maxie's like, oh gee, maybe we are friends. Yeah, Maxie, I would say so. The interesting thing is that Austin brings up the fact that he remembers hearing Brooklyn say that she is the bravest girl that she knows, and the only time Brooklyn said that was the night that Louise was born, when Austin was passed out. He doesn't remember when he heard her saying that, but he does remember her saying that, so obviously there's a chance that he could figure out the truth. Eventually, Brooklyn shows up to the hospital and asks Austin if he really thinks that Leo could be autistic, and he does say yes, I think that he could be. I wonder how quickly Maxie's gonna try to get Brooklyn to be mean to Austin again. You know, just to avoid contact with him so that he doesn't remember more about that night. Guess time will tell. Alright, we've talked about what's going on in Port Charles. Now let's talk about what's going on in other parts of the world in the General Hospital universe. Let's start with Monte Carlo. Sam and Dante are in Monte Carlo at the casino where Rudge used to work to try and track down the guy that used to work for Shiloh. Turns out the guy is a girl, and she gets played by Dante and Sam a little bit, and then she spills all there is to know about what went down. She says that she had a job with Shiloh where she was told to get some spare parts for a plane and dump them into the ocean and make it look like a plane had crashed there. So now Dante and Sam know that the plane crash was faked and that the other plane was somewhere else that they don't know. So that confirms, at least to Sam, that Drew is in fact alive. The next morning she finds out a little bit more about Drew being alive from Anna, and we'll get into how Anna found out certain things a little bit later on, but I wanted to talk about the conversation that happened between Sam and Dante. Now, they talk about Drew and Sam's relationship with Drew, and this is the first time that they really acknowledged that Sam was in love with a guy that she thought was Jason, not Drew. She doesn't know who Drew really is. It was just unspoken territory, and I'm glad that they finally acknowledged this. And I loved Sam and Drew's chemistry, I really did, but again, it was awkward territory. This man just happened to have all of Jason's memories, and I think he still might. Well, depending on the story, we'll get into that in a little bit. Not happy with it. Okay, so let's talk about Anna. So she actually runs into the Robert freaking Scorpio in Greece when she was going to go talk to Chloe in the hospital again, and I am so glad that Tristan Rogers is back. They finally unpunished Tristan Rogers for having the nerve to speak up about how he felt about a certain actor's portrayal of a certain villain. Personally, I thought it was truly ridiculous that they pretty much pushed Tristan out of the door for speaking his mind about that. If anyone on the show has the right to talk about who would be better suited to the role of Faison's son, it's definitely Tristan Rogers or even Finola Hughes. They were part of the original story. They worked with the actor that played Caesar Faison. I think it was okay that Tristan brought up the fact that he wasn't really suited for the role. But anyway, that's a whole thing in itself. Let's talk about the stories again. Anyway, so Anna and Robert go into Chloe's room and Chloe tells them everything that she knows from the time that she got kidnapped against her will right after she had an interview with Peter August, and then how she was in a prison with Drew Kane and that Drew helped her escape the prison, and how she got into a car wreck, ended up at the same bar, ironically, as where Anna and Valentin happened to have been, and then wound up in the hospital. Obviously, that's when Anna did touch base with Sam to let her know of what she knew about Drew. Later on, Anna and Robert go back to the bar where she had left Valentin to rest over his hangover, and she realizes that he is MIA. Robert, of course, thinks that Valentin ditched, but Anna knows Valentin well enough to know that that's not the case. Let's talk about where Valentin is at this point. He actually wakes up in Drew Kane's cell, and at first he thought it was hallucinating, but it turns out he was really drugged. I was right. I did think he got drunk a little too fast. Drew tells Valentin that he's not only being held hostage by Peter August, but also Victor Cassadine, who is working with Peter August, and of course, Valentin is shocked to learn that Victor is alive. The two of them realize that they might just be considered a liability unless Anna can rescue them beforehand. But before anything can actually happen, Valentin is grabbed out of the prison and thrown to, I think, Cassadine Island, or to wherever Victor is staying, and they come face to face. Victor apparently is asking for Valentin's help because he knows that Peter is a dirty man and will probably kill him, so they need to work together to work against Peter. Valentin obviously has no reason to trust Victor, so then Victor decides to let Valentin know that he is in fact Valentin's father. He is the man that had an affair with Helena. Did I not call this last week? I'm pretty sure I called this last week. I don't really know how I feel about it because we know there was a DNA test between Alexis and Valentin that let Valentin know that, you know, he wasn't a Cassadine, but like I said last week, DNA tests are always rigged on the show, so what does it matter? Basically, Victor thinks that Peter is playing him like a fiddle to get the accommodations that Victor can provide to him. The thing that Victor wanted from Peter was the ability to mind control people that Faison had back in the 80s. And according to Peter, he's having a really hard time finding it. Obviously, Peter didn't have that hard of a time finding it because not even a few minutes later, he ends up in Drew's cell and pulls out this really crappy looking card and triggers Drew into mind control once again. We are back in a mind mapping story. Oh my god, why? Why? The story was ridiculous the first time around, and then we had to sit through it again with Dante, and now here we are again with Drew. Did we really bring Drew Kane back for this? Was this absolutely necessary? Let's bring things back over to Robert and Anna. So they are at that bar looking for Valentin. Anna realizes that the bartender is lying about Valentin's whereabouts, so she slams him on the table, discovers that he has a Cassadine crest on his arm, and then all of a sudden a masked gunman shows up and shoots out the place. Anna and Robert are shooting back. Nobody gets hurt. Later, we see the masked gunman pull off his mask, and of course, it's Drew Kane being Peter's new soldier boy. Once again, I cannot believe that we are going through this again. This story is ridiculous no matter how many times you try to tell it. What's next? Is Peter gonna flash the card in Dante's face? Is it gonna be more annoying than the clicking pen? I mean, obviously Dante and Sam are gonna head over to Greece to try and find Drew, so that is definitely a possibility. If y'all are as frustrated as I am in the story, please let me know I'm not alone in the comments below. Anyway, that wraps up the show this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Stay tuned this Wednesday for another episode of GHMV Reacts to spooky General Hospital videos. Let me know if you have any ideas of what you want me to watch in the comments below. And if you liked this particular video here, give me a big old thumbs up, subscribe if you want to, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace out.